Today on the tabletop, I'll be playing the Gather Materials mission for County Road Z. So today I'm going to do the Gather Materials mission. So last time that I went out, my group was able to raid a sporting goods store and get quite a bit of standard weapons, standard blunt weapons and standard bladed weapons. So they did a pretty good haul for that. But unfortunately, coming back, they had quite a bit of wounds. And in fact, TJ is still out this turn healing up. So I spent a couple turns there just trying to get the group sort of back on its feet. And all the while, I sort of exhausted some of my resources. I'm looking forward to trying to hopefully get maybe a little bit more hardware, try to build up some of the resources around my base. And so I'm going to have the group go ahead and go on out to see what they can find. And this is a little bit more of an urban area type table that I have set up. So the Gather Materials mission, you're going to go ahead and roll out for a random number of resources, which I've done. On top of that, you're going to have a number of zombies going to be equal to 1.5 times the tier level of your group. In this case here, the total tier level of my group was 9, so I've got 14 zombies that I have out here, 14 passive zombies. That's quite a bit. Now, when you're doing this and you're laying them out, you're going to be having some areas that are considered resource-rich areas. And I'm going to go ahead and designate this area here behind this fencing here as a resource-rich area. I assume this truck that fell down. And so the 6 inches back here, resource-rich area. I've got these buildings, and assuming that 2 inches around each of these buildings and inside the buildings are resource-rich areas. And so that's what I've got lined up there. Now, if a resource or some materials lands in that area, then you're basically going to put 2 within 3 inches of each other. Likewise, if you get a zombie that lands in there, you're only going to place 1 zombie. But if you have a zombie that spawns outside of that, which case here, then you're going to place 2 zombies. And the way that I've had some rolls and stuff like that, I was pretty successful in getting quite a few zombies lined up and sitting out here in the field. So now normally when you place zombies and doing that, you're going to be ahead and rolling 2 dice and basically multiplying times 3, and that's going to be an X and Y coordinate. Likewise too, that you can basically roll 1 die and then add a certain amount to that, and then it will be radialed off to wherever you roll. There can be another way of randomly doing it. I don't really like the XY coordinate. It takes a little bit harder time to sort of get that worked out. So I use a hybrid method. I've got to sort of have that there. I can sort of line up a video to that. And in that method, what I do is that I have these little central spawn points. They're 8 inches from each side. So I've got those in the corner. I've got one in the center there. And the idea for this then is that I'm going to basically assign a number. 1 die will be a number, randomizing off that. And then there'll be another die that'll be a radial off of that. So example, that's 1, 2. So if I rolled there and that's where it landed, I'll roll another die and it would be 7 inches off that way. And so I've got to sort of have it lined out, and I pretty much rolled and have the zombies set out. It's pretty spread out. It's got my resources spread out. So we're going to see how I can get this playing here. So I'm going to go over a little bit more detail of some of the survivors that I have. First off, I have YooNa. She's got a blade and scavenge skill, and that's going to be pretty good, I think, on these type of missions. And I'll explain this a little bit more as we move in. But really, when you activate and you're gathering resources, you're using 2 skills. One is going to scavenge. The other one is going to go ahead and gather. Now, anybody can scavenge a resource. It doesn't require anything. But if you have a higher scavenge skill, and so in this case here is level 1, and her intelligence is level 1, so she's got a final score of 2. So when she starts digging through, she's actually going to draw 2 resources for each spawn on the table. So that'll be pretty handy. The next one I have is Officer Dale, and you've seen him around a little bit. He's got a long gun skill. He's also got Enter, which is going to be pretty good, I think, for maybe busting the buildings once in a while if that ever comes up. But he's got that shoddy shotgun. It's not that great, and it's pretty loud. So hopefully I can get some experience and try to maybe have him improve his skills somewhat. Now I've got Juanita. Juanita, again, has a handgun skill. She's modeled here with an Uzi, but I'm going to say that's probably like some semi-automatic Uzi there. Pretty much effectively a pistol. And it's a pretty shoddy one at that. So she's not too great in combat with it. But I have her mostly for her rationing skill. And she's sort of been stuck, unfortunately, back at the base, sort of cooking up for the crew. Decided to get her out and try to get some more experience and try to hopefully level up some skills that she's got and broaden that out some. And lastly, we've got more of the seasoned survivor here of Vic. Vic has archery, stealth, and scout. Now, Scout's going to be pretty good here. It's based off intelligence. He's got a final skill of 2, and that's going to be pretty helpful, I think, with trying to break up some of these spawns a little bit and move some zombies around. And I'll describe that in just a moment. Now, a couple things. First off, I'm going to try doing something a little bit more dynamic with the camera and see, hopefully, can capture the action a little bit more as I'm playing. So if folks sort of like that, definitely leave some comments, and I'm trying to get some feedback and figure out like maybe the best way to capture some of the action when I'm doing some things. Another thing too, I felt doing this is maybe more of a tutorial game on this one, and just trying to slow things down a little bit, at least for the first few turns, and sort of explain things a little bit more, the idea of noise and that kind of thing. And again, if folks sort of like that and think it's pretty interesting, again, leave some comments. Still trying to figure out maybe the level of detail I need to do for some of these missions. So I'm still not too sure for, the audience, like, some folks prefer maybe it's some more intro games or maybe some more advanced games to sort of see as the action sort of what happens. So I've got my zombies here. Now, the first thing too, I have a scouting skill for Vic. And what Vic's allowed to do is move some resources or break up some zombies. And that's what he's done, is he's gotten 2 zombies here that he's sort of much broken this off, and Vic has moved them 3 inches. So I've done that over here, and I've done that in the back group there. And the idea is I want to try to space those out just a little bit and try to keep a horde from immediately forming. So I'm going to have my group that's going to move in here. I'm going to sort of see what I've got. I have Vic that's lined up here, supported by Officer Dale. I have Juanita, and they have YooNa. So I'm going to go ahead and have Vic shoot his crossbow first and see what he gets. He rolls a 9. He's successful with that one. So he will definitely take that passive zombie. Now, it's a target-only weapon. It's very quiet. The downside to a crossbow, though, is that it requires 2 actions to shoot. So basically, it's either you sort of move around or do something, or you just stay and shoot. So that's a little bit slow with that. Now, another thing I'm going to try doing here is maybe move some of these buildings off, try to give a better idea of maybe some of the action behind this and be able to capture that a bit more. So I've got 1 zombie here. I'm going to go ahead and have YooNa move on up to this zombie. Oh, let me think about that. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and have YooNa move up to this zombie. Now, in response to that, that zombie is going to become active. And now she's got an active zombie on her. So the target she's going to need to do for a target defense of that zombie is going to be 6. Now, YooNa's got a pretty good skill of 4, plus her weapon. She rolls a 6. She's successful with that and dispatches that zombie. And the thing I like about bladed weapons are they're target only. They're very quiet. So she was able to get that 1 zombie and clear that off there. Now I've got to sort of see what else I'm going to do here, like how much noise I'm going to get off and make. The problem I'm getting with Officer Dale is that, he's got that shotgun. It's pretty useful, but God, it's just so goddamn loud. And I don't think he can get a shot off or anything like that. So I'm going to have maybe YooNa move up and keep her distance and pretty much be lined up to do some shooting, if she needs to. And likewise for this other group here, I'm going to have Officer Dale move on up. And he's just going to basically set himself up for next turn to probably get some shots off and sort of get things going a little bit. And I think we're going to go ahead and finish off turn 1 there. I'm sort of set up. It's going to be interesting to see what these zombies here. They're sort of out of range right now. And I think, as they shoot and start making things a little bit more active, we'll sort of see how that works out up over here. We're going to see where zombies are. In this case here, that's 22 inches there. Okay, that's definitely the furthest zombie that we have up in that corner over there. So we've got 1 zombie that's activated over here, and that become an active zombie. And that's pretty much all the zombies that they're going to be doing. If there's no zombies on the table that are active, you'll have 1 that activates, switches from a passive zombie to an active zombie. That's pretty much its activation. Now I'm going to roll up for spawn. A blue die is going to be which point. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to be over here. Going off in this way here, it'll be 8 inches. And so we're going to have a zombie that's going to spawn. It spawns right down here. So I've got quite a few zombies that are back over here. That's going to be interesting to sort of see how that goes. So now we're going to move on to turn 2. I'm going to go ahead and have Juanita mix things up a little bit. We've got some passive zombies. She's going to do some shooting. and maybe probably make a bit of noise. Now, pistol has an 8-inch range, 8-inch noise range, so I think she's going to be good there. Yeah, she's only going to activate one zombie and get that going. So she's going to go ahead and shoot one zombie here. That was her plan for that one. Rolls a 7, so she's successful in that, and she kills that zombie. Well, it's loud enough that it's going to make another zombie over here active. So I've got another zombie on the other side of this bench over here, and that's made some noise. Now, I think for her that she's just going to go ahead and try to maybe move back a little bit, or better yet, move over here and sort of line herself up. Now, when you're doing a movement here, anywhere along her movement, if she moves within 6 inches, she's going to activate another zombie. And she was able to sort of keep her line out for that one. I'm going to say she scooted on in over here and avoid activating that zombie. So she's been pretty good about that. At least be able to keep that zombie at bay and not activate and do anything. We're going to have Vic go ahead and do some movement. I think he's going to sort of try to line himself up to do some shooting. So he's going to do basically a little bit over 6 inches in his move. So do one move and then another one and line himself up. He's 6 inches outside of any noise here, so he's not going to create any noise. That'll be good for that. Now we got a problem for Officer Dale. You know, when he starts shooting that shotgun, it's loud. It's really loud. So the question is, you know, what is he going to do? What is he going to shoot at? So I'm going to sort of line him up here and have him move. And I think he's going to get a line of shot off to this one zombie over here. Question is now, I'm going to shoot, but I wonder if I'm going to activate any other zombies here. Unfortunately, no, they're all outside 12 inches, so they're not going to activate. So he's going to shoot the zombie here. You know, it's a shoddy shotgun. It's not that great. Fortunately, he is able to kill off that zombie. And then I forgot there's another zombie over here. And sure enough, I'm able to activate that one zombie. So much for those wonderful ideas and trying to keep things quiet for a while. Now, everybody sort of moved except for YooNa. These zombies haven't really done anything yet. So I'm going to have YooNa move up here. She's going to do her one action to do that. Her second action, as I mentioned, is a scavenge. That does create noise. It's about a noise of 3. And because of her skill, she's able to get another resource token that's going to spawn. So I'm going to go ahead and place another resource token next to that. So she's managed to rummage through and at least activate that one and actually create 2 resources for those materials that she scavenged through. Now she's done that and she hasn't picked it up yet. She's just gone ahead and rummaged through that and managed to scrounge together a couple of resources. It still needs to be picked up. And it's quiet enough here where it's not going to activate any other zombies over here. Now we've got a couple of zombies here that we need to activate. First, we have this. So we have a zombie here, and measuring at that, she can't quite get 8 inches and get within a zombie. So she can't do that. She's going to go ahead and move towards the nearest zombie and activate that one zombie there. So now we've got 2 zombies that have gone ahead and activated up here. Same thing for this zombie. It can't reach anything, so it's going to move towards the nearest passive zombie. This is going to be the zombie over here. Do its full move of 6 inches, and then activate that zombie. Lastly, we have this one zombie here. It's not near any zombies at all. It's not near any passive zombies. So in this case here, it's going to move towards the nearest aggressive zombie, which would be 6 inches here. Now that is still outside of 3 inches, so it's not quite a horde, but it's going to become a horde. So we're going to have to try to take care of that as soon as we can. Lastly, we're going to go ahead and spawn some zombies. It spawns in the center there, 4 inches this way. So we're going to have a zombie that actually spawns inside this building over here. And that's going to make that a little tricky for making noise and such. With that going on, we'll go ahead and move on to turn 3. So we've got a zombie in here. It's going to pretty much activate. It's going to probably move through those doors. Now things are a little interesting because if I'm going to do anything out on here, I'm going to activate that zombie. And that's going to make it sort of fun because it's basically going to bust through a door over here in the corner or go over here and probably get Officer Dale. So I am not sure exactly what I'm going to do. It's going to get a little crazy. But I think I'm going to have a couple of turns for movement here. So, and looking at it, it looks like Juanita is probably going to have that activate. That's going to be interesting to see what goes on here. So we're going to see what we can do. But I'm worried about that one last zombie over here. I'm going to go ahead and have Vic give a shot. Now, crossbow has a 24-inch range. That's within range. Plenty of distance. So it's pretty good. He's going to shoot. Pretty much needs anything but a 1. Roll a 9. He's successful with that. And most importantly, as I said, crossbow silent. So it affects the target only. Now, if he missed, that zombie would activate. And then what would happen is that zombie would move into this other group here. So you got a little horde. That could have been bad. But he's able to quickly dispatch that one off. Now, it's a little tricky. I've got 3 more zombies down here, so I'm not too sure what I'm going to do with this. But we're going to see how it sort of works out. Now I've got Officer Dale. Man, I really got to figure out what I'm going to do. But I think I'm going to go ahead and have Juanita do some shooting and get into some crazy stuff here. So she's going to shoot off on 1 zombie. Rolls a 5. She's successful with that one. So she kills 1 zombie. Now, that is loud enough to cause another one to activate. And it will move 6 inches towards her. So she's got some range. It's pretty close. She's going to have to worry about what happens next with that. And then we're going to have another zombie in here, instead of passive, become active. Now, for her second action, she's going to shoot that other zombie. Hopefully she can hit with that one now. She rolls a 10. It's good enough. So she's gone ahead and killed that last zombie. This is going to cause a zombie to activate. And it's closer out to Juanita. So it's going to go ahead and take its 6 inches of movement, burst through this door here, and will be right on her. So that's going to be a little hectic. Now we're going to get into some little bit of shenanigans. I'm going to have YooNa move up. Now the zombie is in contact with Juanita and YooNa. The trick about this is that the zombie will only activate against survivors that cause it to activate through noise. So if, let's say, YooNa moved up a little bit away from that one, even though it's enough to cause the zombie to activate, because it's in base contact with a survivor already, it's basically going to do nothing. However, because she moved up and the zombie is in contact with Juanita and with YooNa, it's going to make an attack against YooNa. Rolls a 1, fortunately. So basically they have an attack skill of 0 with their defense score 6. So YooNa was lucky enough with that one. Now I'm going to hopefully that'll be my bad die roll. So now I'm going to have YooNa go ahead and attack the zombie. And she rolls good enough roll here. And she's able to kill off that zombie. So, we've got that through. Now I've got Officer Dale. And he doesn't have a lot going on. Gosh, he's going to make a lot of noise. So I'm going to have him move up a bit here. There's nothing within 6 inches of range in that one. And he's going to fire off on this zombie here. He's going to activate some zombies, but I've got to just try to hopefully thin these guys out a little bit. So he shoots. He rolls a 3. Plus his skill, he's enough to kill off that one zombie there. Now that is loud. That is like a 12 inches of noise. So we're going to see what happens here. That's 1 zombie for sure that activates. There's no other zombies here. That's just outside for that one there. So we're going to have this 1 zombie that's going to activate. And so far for that one, seemed good enough. That's the end of that turn for at least the survivors. Now we've got 2 zombies over here. There's no survivors within range of that. So they're going to move towards the nearest passive zombie. So they'll move this range here of 6 inches. And that's going to be enough to be within 3 inches of this one. So it's going to activate this other zombie here. And that becomes this activation with that. Likewise for this zombie, it's not going to be within 8 inches here. So it's going to move towards this other zombie. And now you got a couple of active zombies over here. So essentially I've got 1 horde that's going to be over here. I've got another couple of zombies over here. Let's see where we're going to roll these passive zombies. Okay, it's going to be basically over here about 9 inches, which will be up against the board edge in that. So I got some lucky shots off of there and able to thin some stuff out a bit. I don't know how much I can manage to try to actually get things off. I'm going to try to probably keep them here and just see if I can quietly whittle down this horde a little bit and sort of see what we can do. Now on the turn 4. So the situation I've got here is I'm going to go ahead and have YooNa. We're just going to try to go ahead and get some resources. So she's going to move and pick up a resource. Juanita is going to move, basically pick up a resource, move and also pick up a resource because she wasn't in base contact with that. So they each got a resource that they have calling with them. Now when you pick up a resource and even with moving, they all cause 6 inches of noise. There's nothing around them, so they're all okay. Question is what we're going to do around here and trying to get things off. Again, I'm going to have Vic try to line up and get a shot off here. Again, I'm not necessarily saying this is just really more from some scatter terrain. It's not really any hard terrain to block anything off. So I'm going to go ahead and have him shoot. Okay, he's successful with that one because Vic fortunately has a skill of 5 plus 2. So it's going to be enough to kill off that one zombie there. Now, more importantly is that it affects, when you're shooting at, it only affects the target. And so because it was able to eliminate that zombie, basically the rest of that horde will not activate. If he missed, then that zombie would activate, and that includes that entire horde would probably start moving. So that's a nice thing about a crossbow. It's very quiet. You can sort of pick off some zombies that way. But of course, if you miss, then you've got that whole group that's going to be activating. Now, I think the same thing for Officer Dale. I'm just going to have him move back and search this area here, and then basically get a resource that'll be lined up and be ready to pick up next turn. Now things are a little crazy here. These zombies still aren't within 8 inches of anything, so they're going to be moving off towards the nearest passive zombie. And that's pretty good because it's going to line up some shots here, can maybe try to thin this out. These guys, again, are no longer a horde, so they're going to be moving together. They're going to move one zombie in here, and that will activate that one zombie. This zombie will then move over here. So again, you've got this little horde. We're going to see how they do anything at all, if possible. Now that we've got that going on, we'll see where a passive zombie spawn. And that's no good for me. We're going to have one zombie that's going to spawn right over here 5 inches. And we're going to assume that maybe he just sort of crawled out of the building. Oh, that's going to be a little crazy. So that lines us up for turn 5. So turn 5 right now, I've got a passive zombie in here. This is a little crazy. So I'm going to have Juanita, I think she can go ahead and get a shot off. Let's see about that one. Yeah, it's pretty much most of the bases are in there. So she can get one shot off that passive zombie. She's successful about that one. So she eliminates that one zombie over there. And it's a pretty loud shot, but there's nothing within 8 inches. So she's okay with that one. She's going to go ahead and pick up that resource that she's got now. And then she's going to go ahead and move. I'm going to have her move back here a little bit. Get some distance. Same thing for YooNa. I'm going to have her move, do a double move pretty much, and get off over here. So I've got these, they're sort of shuffling around. Now it's questionable for this. I really want to try to get another resource if I could. And of course, can probably have Vic go off here, but I want to still just try to keep him shooting a bit. So Vic can get one shot off of here, no problem. So I'm going to have him do that. And he's successful enough. He kills off and eliminates that zombie. So I think I'm going to do is try to have my group move here. Hopefully I can keep this horde, keep them meandering around a little bit. Now I want to try to keep my distance away from the zombie here and maybe not try to have it activate, but I'm at least going to have Officer Dale move up a little bit. Now he's kept 6 inches away from the zombie, so it won't activate next. But it's going to be close enough probably to move in towards him. So I'm almost, I think, within 8 inches of range in that. And just about, yeah, that's going to be 8 inches of range. So we're going to have that zombie move next turn towards him, but hopefully be able to keep away. So next turn comes about, at least for the zombie activation. And sure enough, there's about 8 inches for that one. So I'm going to have that zombie move. They'll do its full move. It'll be 2 inches away from Officer Dale. They're sort of set there. Now we're going to roll these guys and see where they move. And this could be a little hectic. Okay, fortunately, I'm a little lucky there. It just moves off 2 inches this way. We've got one passive zombie back there. So things are sort of cleared out a little bit. Now we're going to see where this other zombie spawns. Passive zombie lucked out again over here. So I've got one zombie that spawns off in this corner, 10 inches off that way. So I've got a little bit of group there. I got a little bit of breathing room. I think I'll be able to go ahead and clear this out and at least get one more resource and be able to skedaddle and get out of here. We'll see how it goes. So first off, I'm going to have Officer Dale shoot. It's going to be loud, but I think I'm over 12 inches over here, so they're not going to activate these zombies. We're moving on to turn 6. He's going to shoot. Let's see if I get lucky enough. Roll a 10, thank God. So he's able to kill that zombie off. Now that's loud, big noise of the shotgun, but doesn't cause anything to activate there. So I'm going to go ahead and have him probably move back. I'm going to give him the better part of Valor there and get him back off in that corner. I'm going to have Juanita move full 12. Same thing for YooNa. I'm just going to have her move up a little bit. So we got that little tight group there. And finally going to have Vic move. It'll be 2 moves here. Again, he's keeping 6 inches out of this one. So next turn, hopefully he can maybe loot that and still be able to get off the table. We'll see how it goes. Now we get to move this horde and see where they move. And so this is where things start going pear-shaped. They're going to move 10 inches this way. They're going to use as much possible move as they can. So they're going to get out right to about here. And this is where things get crazy. So you've got this whole little horde that's moved in through, and they're within range here. It's going to get pretty wild and crazy. So we're going to see how I can handle things here. Lastly, we get to spawn a passive zombie. So we're going to see where it goes. And again, no luck for me on this one. So 7 inches off this here, we're going to have another passive zombie that spawns here. I think already things are going to get really crazy for this group here and see what they can do. Now, there's really probably not much I can do here. I've got this horde. I've got this other set of zombies. So it's going to be really hard to see what I can do and just trying to manage all this noise. So I'm going to go ahead and have Juanita go ahead and do a shot off here first for this one zombie. Now she's lucks out enough with that Juanita. Her skill is 3. She rolled a 3. It's just enough. You need to get the target number or greater. And an active zombie has a defense of 6. So it's able to kill that one zombie. But it makes noise. 8 inches noise. And it will activate any zombie, any passive zombie, any zombie in range of that. Fortunately, it's not loud enough to activate this one, but it will cause these zombies to move. And in this case here, it's actually going to be both of them. But the good news is that they are a little bit away from her. So they'll move 6 inches and be able to keep out of range from her. Now it's a little tricky because if she does anything else, she's going to get swarmed. So I have YooNa that's still a little too far to be able to get in there and help her out. So I might just go ahead and have her sit tight and not do anything. Not do any other action to activate any zombie. And in case here, I'm going to have Vic maybe go ahead and shoot one zombie and be very nice and stealthy and quiet there. Now he's able to roll and be able to kill off and eliminate one zombie. So I'm good with that. This point there is both of his actions. We've got this one last zombie here. I'm going to have Officer Dale go ahead and shoot. And he's lucky enough there with an 8. Boom, shoots that. Now it's loud, but there's nothing else active here. So we're pretty good. I think that we'd be able to get some control of that situation. Now we've kept things quiet enough where the zombie isn't going to do anything. The furthest zombie away will activate. And that's pretty much for their turn. And now we're going to roll, see where zombies spawn. And this is where it gets crazy. So we're going to have a zombie that's going to spawn 3 inches over here. That's going to be... So it's going to be a little scary. You got a zombie at spawn, but still not quite enough to activate yet. And we'll be able to maybe hopefully handle that. So going on for turn 7 now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Officer Dale try to shoot this zombie. All right, successful enough, so he kills off that zombie. Again, that's pretty loud, but nothing's been activated over there. He's going to do that one action. I'm going to just go ahead and have him get off the board. This is going to be a little tricky here, but I'm going to have Juanita move up. So she's done her movement there. It's 6 inches outside of this range, so it's not going to activate that zombie. And then I'm going to have her shoot. She rolls a 9, so she's good about that. She's able to kill that one last zombie over there. We still got one passive zombie over here. So going to be crazy to see what happens with that. But she's done her 2 actions. So now I'm going to have Vic go ahead and search this one and pick up 1 resource. And I'm going to have YooNa get off the edge of the table here. So this point here, I think it's pretty much we're going to be set and done. This zombie will move over here, activate this other zombie. We're going to see where the passive zombies spawn, which might be interesting if it spawns over here. 3, 4, 5. So the zombies can spawn in somewhere inside this building. So I think at this point here, we're lucky. Basically going to have Vic get off the table, Juanita get off the table over here, and I got YooNa that's going to get off the table. So I was able to extract out of there and have a total of 4 resources. Now, Vic being a higher level survivor, he's a level 3 survivor, he actually has 3 slots. One of them is taken with the crossbow. So he could carry potentially 2 resources, but I don't want to be lounge around a little bit too much on the table here. So we're going to go ahead and call it the better part of valor and get off the table. Now I've got 4 resources. I'm going to go ahead and roll on the table and see what they are. I'll roll for the first 2. It's a 7 and 8. Nice. I found a couple of hardware. That's what I wanted. Roll for the other 2. One's going to be a rare item. Nice. And still another one that's going to be hardware. So I lucked out on that one. We'll see on 43 what I got here on page 43 for some rare items. So that'll be a rare upgrade subtitle. And that one I got a gas grill. And that might be a nice thing to do. I'll have to see. I could at least probably trade it because what I'm at right now is with the greasy spoon. I've got a nice gas range already, but that'll probably be good to have just to maybe keep and possibly have that for trade later on. So I'm pretty happy with that. You know, I wanted to get some hardware, lucked out in getting hardware itself rather than food and stuff. So fortunately, nobody got hurt and able to get off the table. So I'm talking out with County Road Z. Things can get a little crazy. Big thing is, of course, you always want to try to manage your noise, but you never quite know. And I said, you sort of are pushing your luck a little bit. Even when you got things sort of set, you know, you're going to get these passive zombies that spawn and things can really snowball and get out of there. So even though you might think you have control of the area, you could have a zombie spawn right on top of you, and then you're locked in melee, and then you've got all this trouble that's going on. So I think sometimes, you know, you have to sort of cut your losses and maybe just sort of figure out, I'd rather not have some people that are wiped out with quite a few wounds and they can't really get out in the field for a while, or even worse, they get surrounded by a horde and get wiped out. So I was lucky enough for that one. I've got 4 resources. I'm happy with what I got for that. So I'm going to wrap it up here with my gather materials mission, get my guys back to the base, and see what else I can get on the tabletop next.